schedule, looking at the schedule, how do you plan to assist those students who have high academic gaps? How do you plan to close those gaps? And what part of your schedule could you pull students for a small group, additional small group, or just some one-on-one time?
It would have to be early literacy block.
Okay. So the early literacy block.
And you can still go into interventionist
There
time.
you go. So the early literacy block is a requirement. So you are going to be required to do your M-class progress monitoring. So that's so from Dibble. So now we're going from the pre-K circle to kindergarten first to second Dibbles.
Okay.
So that is their assessment. Dibbles is just like circle, is just more advanced for kindergarten first and second grade.
Okay.
Right. So this early literacy block, 30 minutes of it is block time that you cannot do anything else but that from the district. So take out 30 minutes of this time in your head, right? And so looking at the schedule now, what methods do you plan to use to help close the academic gaps?
I would still use it at the same time because I could still use the 30 for this early literacy block, and then I could still take it into interventionist time.
Okay, how do you plan to structure that in your classroom? What are your kids doing? Well, the kids who are your high performing kids, what are they doing in this?
You can still, at kindergarten, I feel like you can still use centers.
Okay.
Take in centers. And these are the things like you can be working on tricky words, vowels, putting sentences together, reading, comprehension, something you have already went over and taught them, you reviewing with them, but they're doing it in centers.
Love that. All right. Okay, so we've addressed the schedule now. So this could be potentially your schedule. Looking at the schedule, comparing it to your current pre-K schedule, do you see any differences or do you have any concerns? Because the only difference is really the nap time. Excellent. All right, so our district emphasizes on using data. So we're going back to the data. So that's that Dibbles and MAP for kindergarten. What data sources do you rely on to most inform your decisions for Dibbles and MAP? And how would you adjust your plans accordingly? So from your everyday instruction, how do you as a teacher kind of collect all your data? And then how do you use it as you're progressing?
So once you collect your data and you have to look at each student's score and it's like a data tracker that I use. And it's for my eyes only, but you can also show the parent like, okay, I've been working on this, and if you do you see the progress? Because if you're working on it at home, you'll see the progress, and then we can move to the next step. So that's like really like looking at both of like each of the data, writing it out, seeing what they need, because each test is different. So they might score higher in MAP or than Dibbles. It just depends. Okay. But really just pinpoint those red dots where they really need help.
Okay, so that's the high data, but on a day-to-day scale, right? From just 1 week with our DOLs and their student work, how are you accounting for that data? The day-to-day classwork and aggregating all that together and saying, okay, so Jimmy needs help with this, Marcus needs help with this.
So another thing that I will do, and it will also be when parent-teacher meetings come, I will make sure I will have all my DOs in a folder. That way you're collecting it. So then when
did you bring one to present?
So
a student folder or example?
So this is their math, science, social studies.
Okay.
And so then for like math, like, okay.
You keep record of all the students' work. Excellent.
And then if this is the time where you can take it back to, if they didn't finish, this is like pre-K's DOL. So if they didn't do good on their DOL, that's why I put like a smiley face or a star. Then if they get a star, they know they need to come to me to the table.
Oh, I love that.
I pick like pinpointing like, okay, you got it. Okay, we gotta do some work. Or I'm checking everybody's. Once the smiley face, okay, the smiley faces, it can go. Now, if I want to do like, if it's a lot of them that got stars, okay, if you got a smiley face, go to your center. If you have a star, come back to the carpet. Let's walk through this. We're gonna do it together. We're gonna fix what you need to fix.
Okay, love that. All right. Now, I want you to talk about your pre-K experience with this because you haven't collaborated with kindergarten. What does your pre-K planning look like with your teachers, with your other pre-K teachers? Because there is currently 4 of you guys. And how do your TAs play a part?
So during planning time, we meet.
Maybe go out this door and go around to Dr. White's.
We meet during our planning period, and each one of us does a subject. So I do the chronological awareness part. And Miss Harden, she does the reading portion, and Mr. Beer does the math, and then Miss Cooper does the science and social studies. And so how we do it is that any materials that we need for the subject that we did, we provide it to our teacher. We talk about how we're going to teach it, or we give input. That's where you give your feedback, like, what do you think about it? Yeah, so we can do it like that, but making sure like we're all on the same page. Any anchor charts that need to be made, like will already be made and given to them the week prior to we even teaching that lesson.
Okay. Love. Let me see. Okay, now you touched on this earlier, so we've talked about data, we've talked about collaborating, now we've talked about planning. And so within this planning umbrella, we've kind of addressed it earlier, you stamped it, and I actually wrote it down. I want to talk about our special pops, right? Especially starting in kindergarten. So in early education, we see the wide gaps in the readiness skills. How do you differentiate your instruction to meet the needs of your EBs, that you touched on earlier, your special education students, and then those with limited pre-literacy exposure? So like, is there anything in addition you do as far as translations, or how do you utilize your TA? How do you help those special pops?
Well, I really use my TA, especially with the EBs. When I'm talking and teaching a lesson, she might be translating as best as she can, so that they can understand and answer and engage in the whole group lesson. For the ones like my special ones, I do have this thing where it says, like, sometimes they need a schedule. So I have this thing where it says, first you do this, then you do this. Like, first you do your work, then you can go to block center. Or first you do this, okay, and after you go to block center, now it's time to go to lunch. And it keeps them like staying on schedule. I try to do that at the beginning of the year. That way, like towards the end, like we gravitate off of it, because now they're in the routine of their scheduling things and how things work.
Okay.
And it really does work, because I used it.
Your student, and you can say that.
No.
Tell me about Jackson.
I used it with Jackson because like this was his first time coming into a public school, because he's coming from a daycare. So what I did is he wasn't used to coming in. It was like a lot for him. So I had to say, okay, first we do this, then next you do this. Okay.
What is this?
So like first I'll say, okay, first we have to do work, then we can go to blocks. And then he's a repeater, so he repeats. Okay, first I do my work, then I do my blocks. Okay, then. So he'll either, wherever he's comfortable doing his work at, I'll let him do. He'll come to my table, and then he'll just sit and he'll do his work. And he is capable of doing his work by himself.
Okay.
You literally just tell him like, okay, you have to do this and this. And then you can just turn and he'll do, like, he knows, he can comprehend, like, oh, this is this? Yes. Once he's done, okay, I'm done. I put a smiley face on it. Can I go to box now? Yes, you can go to box.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of getting ready to close out. How do you celebrate and reinforce student progress in your classroom? What motivates your students to stay engaged and take ownership of their learning? I know we have a campus VBuck system ourselves, where we bring around the VBuck cart, and it's like dollar bills for the students to buy candy, toys, fidget spinners, the list goes on and on. What are in classrooms in classroom things or incentives that you use to promote positivity and reinforce?
use Fun Friday where, maybe on Fridays, if everybody has gotten their work done, behavior, they haven't really just gotten all reds or yellows on that behavior chart. Like towards the end of the day, they like getting on Starfall and playing
Okay.
those little games like that. Giving them